Tell me, why every time we think the Diddy saga can't get any crazier, somebody pops out of the shadows like, wait, I got one more tape, because today? Oh, today isn't just messy, it's catastrophic. Adult film star Sly Diggler just detonated a digital nuclear bomb so powerful it might shake the internet off its hinges. And no, this isn't one of those allegedly, reportedly, maybe type scandals. This man brought receipts, recordings, and a tape so wild that 50 Cent himself cut it out of his own Netflix documentary. And now we finally know why, because apparently the tape includes Diddy, Baby Oil, 50's baby mother, and something Sly Diggler described as, well, a 3-inch problem. And when I tell you the streets are screaming, social media is holding emergency prayer circles. 50 Cent is suddenly very quiet. And Diddy? He's somewhere punching the air in 3 different time zones. But here's the real question. Why did 50 censor this tape? Why did Sly Diggler wait until now to leak it? And what did he show Vlad TV that had the internet in cardiac arrest? Buckle up. This one is not for the faint-hearted. From the moment Sly Diggler stepped into that studio chair across from Vlad TV, people could feel the tension through the screen. It wasn't just an interview. It wasn't a conversation. It was a full-blown digital confession booth mixed with a nuclear missile launch. The man sat down like he had been waiting 20 years for this moment, like every scandal he'd watched from the sidelines finally gave him permission to drop his own little bomb into the culture. And instead of coming in humble, respectful, maybe even subtle, Sly looked right into the camera with that slow, proud smirk, like he knew he was about to say something that would permanently fracture the internet's spine. Because according to him, Diddy didn't just cross lines back in the day, he erased the entire notebook. The way Sly tells it, the energy on those old sets wasn't just unprofessional, it was unholy. Rooms filled with smoke, half-torn posters on the walls. Clashing colognes, people whispering, phones recording, secrets being traded like currency. And right in the middle of all of it stood Diddy, acting like the king of a world nobody asked him to build. Sly claims the man walked around like a director. Security guard, producer, therapist, and dictator all in one. One minute he was giving orders, the next minute he was cracking jokes, and seconds later he was pulling people into private corridors like he had something to show them. It was chaos with a rhythm, madness with a pattern. And Sly says those patterns always led to things that should have never been filmed, let alone saved. That's where the infamous tape comes in. The tape Sly claims was so disturbing, so embarrassing, so painfully detailed that even Netflix couldn't handle it. According to him, 50 Cent's documentary crew saw the clip, watched 3 seconds of it, and collectively decided the world was not ready. They blurred it. They muted it. They locked it away like it had the power to summon demons. And what makes that even crazier is that 50 Cent, a man who lives to expose, mock, destroy, and screenshot people for sport, looked at that footage and said, yeah, nah. For 50 to censor something, it had to be absolute destruction. Sly describes the moment like it happened yesterday. There was a dim room, a shaky camera, a cheap leather couch, and a scene so awkward that even the cameraman sighed halfway through. And right there in the middle of it was Diddy, involved in some activity that Sly swears nobody expected, not even the people in the room. He called it the 3-inch moment. And the internet latched onto that phrase like it was the last meme of the decade. Because when Sly said it, he didn't say it casually. He didn't whisper it. He delivered it like a courtroom testimony, like he was reporting a crime, like he had been carrying the weight of this knowledge for far too long. And now that he was free to talk, he wanted the entire world to understand the magnitude of what he witnessed. But the most shocking, this video wasn't the claim itself, it was the timing. Why now? Why after years of silence? Why, after so many other allegations and accusations have already turned Diddy into a walking PR disaster? Sly says he kept quiet because nobody would have believed him back then. The industry protected Diddy, the culture protected Diddy, even other celebrities protected Diddy, shielding him behind money, fame, connections, and carefully curated image control. But once the cracks began to show, once lawsuits dropped, Once accusations multiplied, once victims stepped forward, that's when Sly knew it was his moment. The world was finally ready to listen, and he wasn't going to waste a second. He claims he tried to warn people years ago. He told producers, assistants, even a few other adult film stars, but every time he got the same response. Don't talk about that. Leave it alone. It's not worth your career. That type of fear doesn't come from rumors, it comes from power. And Sly insists Diddy's power wasn't just money. It was influence, reach, leverage, the type of sway that could make or break entire careers with a single phone call. But not anymore. Not with all these lawsuits, FBI whispers, and multiple celebrities suddenly remembering things that happened in the early 2000s. Now, Sly says the playing field is different. Now he says people are ready for the truth, and according to him, the truth is so explosive that keeping quiet would be a disservice to humanity. He says that tape doesn't just expose Diddy, it exposes the entire ecosystem around him. Assistants who pretended they saw nothing. Cameramen who recorded without questioning why. Editors who cut things out and buried them under NDA threats. All of them, according to Sly, are this video of a bigger machine built to protect one man's image at all costs. And if the machine is finally breaking down, Sly wants to make sure it collapses completely. But the real storm begins with what he claims happened after the filming. Sly says Diddy pulled him aside, gave him a speech that felt more like a warning than gratitude, and told him this footage would never see daylight. He says Diddy made eye contact in a way that made his stomach drop, like he wasn't asking, he was commanding. Sly walked away from that set knowing one thing. That tape had become a ticking bomb. And now, after everything that's come out, he says it's time for the world to know exactly what was on it. And this is where things take a turn that nobody expected. Because according to Sly, after the crew finished filming, something happened that changed the entire direction of the story and set the stage for everything that would follow next. Because what happened after the camera stopped rolling wasn't damage control, wasn't a private conversation, wasn't even a clean wrap-up of the shoot. According to Sly, when the studio lights dimmed and people started packing bags, Diddy didn't just walk away. He came back into the room with a different energy entirely. Like he suddenly realized the severity of what had just been filmed. Sly says Diddy walked in with this tight, forced smile, a smile that didn't match his eyes at all, and started talking in that slow, exaggerated tone people use when they're trying to pretend everything's fine. But nothing about that moment felt fine. Not the silence in the room. Not the nervous laughter from the makeup artist. Not the way Diddy kept glancing toward the camera equipment like he was calculating something. That's when Sly claims he noticed two security guards he hadn't seen before. They weren't dressed like regular security, no badges, no neck earpieces, no visible weapons. They wore plain black shirts and blank facial expressions like they were there for one specific task. The moment they entered, the air changed. Sly says they didn't speak, didn't greet anyone, didn't check anything. They simply stood next to the camera table and stared at the equipment as if they were deciding what was about to disappear. That's when Sly realized Diddy wasn't just worried about the footage, he was terrified of it. According to Sly, Diddy walked straight up to the main cameraman, leaned in, and whispered something too quietly for others to hear. But whatever he said, the effect was immediate. The cameraman's face dropped. He swallowed hard. He packed the tape into a small black case like it was radioactive. Then he handed it to one of the silent guards who tucked it under his arm like evidence in a crime scene. Nobody dared question it. Nobody dared ask where it was going. The entire room just froze, pretending not to see anything. That was the first time Sly realized how deep the control went. But what really shook him wasn't that. Diddy wanted the footage removed. It was what Diddy supposedly said next. Walking back towards Sly, he clapped him on the shoulder and said, "You a real one for this. You know how business works?" But Sly swears the tone wasn't friendly. It was layered. It was a message. One of those statements that sounds supportive on the surface, but underneath it carries a thin, sharp warning. Sly says he smiled back, nodded, pretended to agree, but in his head he knew he needed to get out of there fast. That's when he claimed something unexpected happened. As he stepped away, one of the producers, a guy who had been nervous the entire shoot, pulled him aside and whispered, "Make sure you keep your own copy." Sly says the man was sweating, glancing at the door every 3 seconds. "Just trust me," he said. "You never know when you might need protection." Those words stuck with Sly for years. And according to him, that one sentence is the only reason any of this is coming out now. Because apparently that producer wasn't just being paranoid, he had seen things before. He had seen people get blacklisted, careers disappear, projects shut down, all because footage fell into the wrong hands, or the wrong people started talking. Sly didn't fully understand the warning until weeks later. When he started hearing stories from other people in the industry, assistants who said Diddy kept archives of moments nobody should have filmed, stylists who claimed tapes would go missing one day and mysteriously reappear months later, camera operators who quit shows without explanation. There was a pattern forming, one that Sly hadn't noticed before. And that's when he began to realize that his footage, the footage he thought was destroyed, might still exist somewhere in a locked vault or private server. Years passed. The rumors got louder. The lawsuits started stacking. People began whispering stories that sounded eerily similar to what Sly had experienced. And the more he listened, the more he realized that his encounter wasn't an isolated event. It was this video of a larger chain. One that stretched across decades, across studios, across entire groups of artists and employees who all seemed to carry pieces of the same puzzle. And as that puzzle slowly started coming together, Sly says he knew his time was coming. The turning point, according to him, was the release of 50 Cent's documentary. When he watched the censored segment, the blurred out footage, the muted audio, the awkward jump cuts, he felt chills. Not because the scene was missing, but because he could tell exactly which moment it was. And that meant one terrifying thing: the footage was never destroyed. It was still out there in someone's possession, powerful enough to make a billion-dollar company slam on the brakes and censor the truth. Sly realized that if the footage made it into 50's hands, it meant others had access too. And if others had access, it meant someone had intentionally kept it hidden all these years. That was the moment. Sly decided he couldn't stay silent anymore. Because if the footage was resurfacing, it meant someone else was preparing to use it. And if someone else was preparing to use it, Sly needed to get ahead of the story before he became a target. He wasn't going to let his name be dragged into a storm without telling his side first. So he reached out. He called VOD TV. He told them he was ready. And when Vlad asked if he understood the weight of what he was about to do, Sly replied with the same calmness he carried into the studio that day. "If the truth is coming out anyway, I might as well be the one to say it." And what happened next is where the scandal explodes into something none of us were prepared for. Because once Sly opened his mouth on camera, the entire internet entered a state of collective panic as the real details of that tape started dropping. The way the room went silent after Sly said those words, it felt like somebody unplugged the whole industry. Because the moment he said those NDA names are already being cross-checked with timestamps, that's when insiders realized this man is not bluffing. He's not waving around pretend receipts. He's not fishing for clout. He's holding a nuclear device with a broken safety switch. And the countdown already started. And the documentary team, who thought they were making a cute little expose, now understands they accidentally signed up to film the final days of an empire. And Sly keeps going, saying that the reason 50% of the footage got censored wasn't because it was too graphic. No, they censored it because the industry does not have the infrastructure to survive what's on that drive. Not the institutions, not the labels, not the agencies, not the investors, not the executives sitting in their glass offices pretending they don't know what's going on. He claims there's a moment in the footage where the camera catches the reflection of one major executive, who the world believes is spotless, a man known for philanthropy, charity, billion-dollar donations. And Sly says that man, the one people worship online, was standing in the doorway watching the situation happen, not stopping it, not helping, Just watching. Sly says the reaction from the legal teams was so fast. He didn't even finish the preview before lawyers started calling the network demanding the entire documentary be scrapped. Not edited, scrapped, deleted, wiped like it never existed. And Sly laughs, saying that was the moment he realized he was dealing with something much bigger than a scandal, bigger than a rumor, bigger than a celebrity downfall. He says this is the first time he's seen the industry terrified, not nervous, not cautious, terrified, because according to him, the explicit footage isn't even this video that scares them the most. He says the scariest this video is the audio in the background, the off-camera conversations, the planning, the instructions, the deals being made while someone was being set up to be humiliated. And he says if the public ever hears those conversations, it won't just end careers, it will expose the architecture of how the entire machine works. Who gets protected? Who gets sacrificed? Who gets paid to look the other way? And at this point, the live stream chat is melting down. People are begging him to stop talking. Others are begging him to drop the file right now. Some are screaming he's lying. Others swear he's telling the truth because, in their words, no man sounds this traumatized while making up a story. Sly says he hasn't slept since watching that tape, says he wakes up hearing the voices in the background, says he keeps seeing that reflection in the doorway. He says this was never supposed to land on his desk. He wasn't supposed to be the one dealing with this. But after all the recent lawsuits, raids, interrogations, and settlements, someone panicked and tried to hide it by sliding it into the documentary archive, hoping no one would review it. Then he leans closer to the camera and says this video that changed everything. This video where he claims the footage includes timestamps that overlap with a night where the official story has been disputed for years. A night where multiple witnesses swore something happened, but were dismissed as crazy, clout-chasing, or drunk. He says the footage aligns with their stories, including details only insiders would know, and that one of those witnesses who was bullied out of the industry was telling the truth the entire time. Sly says the documentary producers freaked out so badly they tried to convince him the footage had to be a deepfake. But he says the metadata doesn't lie. The room layout doesn't lie. The people in the background don't lie. And the voice giving instructions definitely doesn't lie. Then Sly reveals the final twist. He says the censored 50% wasn't chosen because it was the worst. It was chosen because it was this video that involved people the public trusts. Not messy celebrities, not known troublemakers, not industry villains. No, these were people the public sees as heroes, mentors, leaders, icons, people who built their entire careers on a clean, inspiring image. And Sly says once the network realized that, they didn't care about the truth anymore. They cared about survival. They cared about preserving the illusion. He says the censorship wasn't to protect Diddy, it was to protect everyone else who let it happen. And just when the chat thinks he's done, he says he's been contacted by someone claiming to have the uncensored files. Someone who says Sly only saw the appetizer. Someone who claims there's a second drive with footage from the same night, but from a second camera angle, one the industry forgot about. And that person told Sly they're willing to hand it over if he promises to expose the system once and for all. Sly says he hasn't responded yet because he knows accepting that file means there's no going back. No more safety. No more privacy. No more negotiation. He says the moment he touches that drive, his name becomes a target, and the way he stares into the camera at the end, that broken, exhausted look, it tells you everything. It tells you he's seen something that can't be unseen. Something that can't be spun or denied or swept under the rug. Something that has the potential to tear open the entire entertainment industry from the inside. And now the question is not whether he's telling the truth. The question is who's going to stop him before he drops the rest. And now you understand exactly why this story cannot die quietly. This isn't just another scandal. This isn't just another celebrity meltdown the industry can sweep under the rug and hope we forget. This is the moment the curtain slipped, and for the first time, the audience saw the hands pulling the strings. So if you think this is the end, you're wrong. This is the ignition point. Because the second Sly even hinted at that second drive, the internet changed. People are choosing sides. Lawyers are scrambling. Networks are panicking. And insiders are suddenly acting like they've seen a ghost, which means something is coming. Something big. And when it hits, it's going to hit everyone at once. So if you want the truth before they bury it, if you want the next update before the machine shuts it down, if you want every leak, every twist, every hidden piece of evidence they swore you'd never see, then make sure you stay locked in right here. Because the moment Sly responds to that mystery source, the moment that second file moves, even 1 inch, we're dropping the next chapter instantly. This story isn't over. It's just starting. Stay ready. Stay ready.